I think we're live. Um, Let me double check
Oh,
something. Okay. Yeah, we are live. So, hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Live with Madeline, Katie, and Dale, your monthly live show powered by the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast. This is your place to get real answers to real questions about senior living, health, real estate, long term care insurance, and navigating senior transitions all in real time. Whether you're caring for an aging parent, supporting a friend through the process, or planning ahead for yourself, this show is for you. We'll be doing a live Q&A throughout this episode. So if you have a question you'd like us to answer, you can scan the QR code on the bottom right of the screen right now, or just head to www.simplifyseniortransitions.com/live, and that'll take you to a quick form. There's a link down there where you could also get to the fill out the form, and we might answer your question live right here on the show. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Dale Corpus, a senior transition specialist and real estate expert based in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been in residential mortgage and real estate since 2001. It's been a while. And I also hold my RCFE administrator certificate. What that really means is I don't just sell homes, I help families navigate some of the most emotional and complex chapters of life, like funding senior care, downsizing, and transitioning a loved one into assisted living. And I work closely with families in the sandwich generation, those of us caring for aging parents while raising our own kids. And I'm proud to be a trusted guide through everything from housing to health to long term planning. And I'm thrilled to be co hosting this live monthly show with two incredible experts, Madeleine and Katie. Um, let's see, Katie, why don't you go ahead and start introducing yourself, and then we'll go from there.
okay, sounds great. Thanks, Dale. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Katie Perez. Like Dale, I have my 25 years of experience in the mortgage world. And up until a few years ago, I realized that my responsibility towards my clients goes beyond helping them find their home and getting into their home, but it goes way beyond that when it comes to planning for their financial future, their care, and transferring generational wealth. So, because of that, I've expanded my services to include financial services overall. So, I'm very fortunate that I'm able to continue working with Dale and Madeline. And with that, I'd like to transfer your attention over to Madeline.
Hi, everybody. I'm Madeline Fortich. I'm a real estate broker with Realty One Group in California at Realty One Group Future, and here in Scottsdale, Arizona, which it's a lovely 103 degrees today. I am also a life agent with World Financial Group, and drumroll please, I'm also a certified Marie Kondo KonMari consultant, which means I like to tidy and organize things. So I'm happy to be here today with Katie and Dale to talk about aging well and the planning. Keyword is planning that comes with it. Dale, what kind of questions
Well,
we got?
okay, here. Let's start off with probably one of the most asked questions that we get, right? The question that we get the most, and here it is, okay? We just moved my mom into assisted living. Do we need long term care insurance if she's already there? Katie, what do you think?
You know, like what Madeline said, the message that we have for today is planning. So, ideal time to look into long-term care is before the need arises. So, unfortunately, when your mom is already in a facility, in an assisted living facility, or if she's already been diagnosed to be unable to perform two out of the six activities of daily living, which is the definition of long-term care, it's the inability to do two out of six activities of daily living for 90 days or longer. It might be too late for your mother to look into that. However, it's still strongly recommended that you as the one caring for your family, your parents, look into it for yourself so that your children will not have to find themselves in the situation that you're in now. What do you think, Maddie?
I would have to agree. And for today's purposes, the official name is Madeleine. But yes, I will answer that question. I truly
Sorry.
believe it is about the it is about the planning. I'm all about the planning. Why? Because it's a tough conversation. I mean, being in the sandwich generation, like Dale mentioned, there's certain things that we just don't like to talk about. And one of them is the eventuality that we are not going to be here on this earth. And the thing I can say is that watching families go through the process, um, lack of planning often comes hand in hand when it is there. It is an emergency. It is something that's life altering for everyone in that family. And I truly believe that a lot of things can be prevented. The hardships that come with it can be prevented by having a game plan. And it's not a game, but it's definitely a plan that people need to work towards. Every single family that I speak to, I start planting those seeds early on because it is a tough conversation. But the key word being please plan ahead and ask people that you know that are trusted advisors to help you get those plans in order.
Okay.
Dale?
Next question. Here it is. Um, my dad's house is falling apart, but we need the money to pay for memory care. Do we have to fix it before selling?
I think you're in a better position to answer this question first, Dale.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start first, as this is in my wheelhouse. So the answer is no. I mean, one of the things that I do is I'm a realtor, and one of the things that I always say is I could either list the home or else I could buy the home, I could buy the home, and then also I have many clients that could also even buy the home as is. And one of the things I never really talk so much about on my podcast or whatnot is even my own background. I've been working with homes in original condition for several years now. I've been an acquisition agent for multiple professional rehab companies and developers. And what I did for them is I'd hunt for what we call off markets, which means the homes were not even listed on the MLS. You could not find them on Redfin or Zillow or whatnot. I would have to find them myself creatively, right, off market to figure out who was needing to sell and whatnot. And here's the funny thing: a lot of times when I was finding these off market types of fixers, they were always connected to a senior, right? A senior was either downsizing, a senior passed away. It was maybe a probate sale or a trust sale, okay? Or a senior might be moving to assisted living, right? So I'm very familiar with this, even before I, started saying that I was a senior transition specialist. And here's the thing: I always tell people that if they needed to sell fast, maybe selling off market might be a good idea. But if they wanted the highest, net dollar, not profit for their property, then let's go on market if we have time, because you're going to net the most. But if you really needed the money for care now and fast, you really don't need to fix it, because the way these buyers are, and then there's a lot of them always looking for these types of homes. Even right now, with the state of the real estate market the way it is, they base valuations on what the future value of the home would be after they do their rehab work, and they base it on percentages of that. So, for example, an investor would give a higher percentage of the value for a home if it was in a Bay Area county like San Mateo or Santa Clara or Contra Costa, versus something out in Central Valley like San Joaquin. For example, if a home was not a tear down but still livable but in original condition, somebody in San Mateo County, an investor would probably give a value of anywhere between 70 to 80% of what that value of the home would be once they fully, rehab it and it looks beautiful again, right? But somebody over in San Joaquin County, that same type of investor would have a lower percentage. It might be like 60 to 70%. Okay. All right. So every seller wants the most net profit, right? But it's like the people that are investors buying it, they're putting the sweat equity and the money to make it beautiful again. Okay. But so again, a lot of times people if somebody had the time, they could fix it up themselves and get to close that to that 100% value of the home was fixed up if they had the time. So I know that I was a long-winded answer, but I just wanted to kind of give, paint a picture of how it works with homes in original conditions, because people are always looking at them and just trying to paint a picture of how people evaluate them when the home is really in original condition. And a lot of times people ask me if I even should remodel, like, should I just do the kitchen and leave everything else? The answer is no. If you're going to fix the house, you don't want to do everything, or leave it a clean slate, because that person that wants to, rehab the home, or that family that wants to move in, they want to make it their own. They didn't want you to pick all of the feature, any of the fixtures or anything and the colors. They want to make it uniform, and they want to be able to design everything. So that's my 2 cents. Katie, did you have anything to add?
I think people can tell how passionate we are about this topic, but knowing that you and Madeleine are the realtors in this chat, I would ask Madeleine her take on it.
So I think the key thing that Dale pointed out is the key word in that whole segment is time, which sometimes to rehab something, especially with the state of how things are going right now, labor is short, and materials we may have, depending on what's tariffed or not. But you have to think about these hiccups that you run into when you take on a project of that magnitude, is that there's a time frame allotted for it. And the key thing that I always remember is, no matter what the time is that we think something's going to go well in a renovation, and it's happened many times, once you start taking things apart, you discover things in discovery, like things that were not there, that you didn't know were there, and you happen to stumble upon, that now cause greater lengths in terms of trying to prepare for the end result. So sometimes, like plumbing issues, my favorite, asbestos, things you didn't know about. You're opening a can of worms in a lot of those instances. And I think that sometimes people want to get the maximum dollar in return, which I completely understand. But there's nothing you can do to replace the time if you actually started something and you don't have an end game to finish that out. So I've had it happen where somebody started a renovation, they're about 30 days into it, and their parents, the parent situation got worse. And now you have that project plus now in a senior that's not doing well. What is the time worth to just get it off your plate? So that's my 2 cents on that topic.
Yeah.
And these are things that we've identified to be out of our control, right? The other thing here, it's not a question of whether you can afford to do the renovation. Again, like what Madeleine said, it's the timing, because there's so many factors here that's out of the family's control. Another thing there that was overlooked is, how about getting those building permits? Because that takes time too. And most of the time city offices are short-staffed. So it's not that easy to just submit an application and expect to get it the next day or so. It could take some time before your permit could be approved. So definitely time is a major consideration in undertaking such a project.
Okay. Here's next question. My mom put me on the title of her house years ago. Can we just sell it without worrying about taxes or Medi-Cal?
I love it when people do this. And I love it when people ask us. Again, it goes back to planning.
Okay.
Right? And what do I mean by that? We have no idea how the market will be when the time comes. And so again, it's important for families to have an estate planning, because that will tell their kids, okay, which assets are we going to liquidate first? Now, just keep in mind that regardless of which asset you decide to liquidate first, there could be tax consequences to that. And there could be changes in the regulations as well. So it's always good to plan ahead, consult with your tax advisor, and check on where changes have been made in the regulations, just to make sure that your plan is still appropriate. Don't take the shortcut.
Yeah.
Maddie, what do you think? I'm sorry, Madeleine.
Hello.
Just so
Hello?
comfortable calling you.
Yes,
Sorry,
Madeline. Now,
Madeline.
now Madeline will answer this question. I agree with Katie. The strongest thing about her statement, again, I think, is talk to your trusted advisor. And in this case, as much as I am a realtor and your trusted advisor for the transaction, the key here is the tax implication. That's one thing I cannot answer, will not answer, should not answer.
That's true.
And I will always say defer to your tax advisor for that.
Yep. I was going to echo
Dale.
that. I was going to echo the same thing. I mean, people assume co-ownership gives them like full control sometimes, but this can lead to messy legal and tax consequences. So planning, okay,
Mhm.
I would bring in an elder law attorney and or state planners to navigate through it properly, right? um, Next question. What's better, traditional long-term care insurance or one of those new hybrid life insurance policies? Who's got that?
I got that. Okay, so when we talk about the traditional long term care product, it was designed originally to just take care of long term care needs. So if you will never need it,
Mhm.
because again, it long term care doesn't have anything to do with age or medical condition. I'm going to go back to the definition of long term care. It's the inability to do 2 out of 6 activities of daily living
Mhm.
for more than 90 days. Even if you get diagnosed to be terminally ill, it's still possible for you to be able to do all those 6 activities of daily living. So, what happens if you have the traditional long term care plan is you don't use it. So, it's one of those that we in the industry would call use it or lose it. Now, the insurance industry has realized that there's room for improvements in the way they design these products. And so they've also come up with the hybrid plan now, which is more common, more popular these days. And the reason why it's more popular is because it offers the option to address different situations in life. Because that's something that we can't foresee, the future, right? So when with the hybrid long-term care, it's what's called live, die, or quit plan. So if you live and you need long-term care, it's there. If you pass away before ever needing it or ever using it, or maybe I've used it partially,
Mhm.
then there's a death benefit for your beneficiaries. If you decide that it's something that you will never need and you just want to surrender it, you can do that and there's a surrender value to it. So that's the difference between the traditional long term care and the hybrid long term care.
Madeline, anything to add?
No, I think Katie covered the majority of that. And I think the one key component there is that with traditional long term care insurance, I believe that, again, going back to the beginning, is to do that early because it is very cost prohibitive for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
doing it early is beneficial.
Okay. Moving
Dale,
on.
next
Yeah.
question.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was going to add something there because again, it's not just a matter of the affordability.
Uh-huh.
There's also the question of eligibility because it's still tied to a life
Yeah.
insurance product.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that the individual, the person that you're covering, would still qualify for the coverage.
Yeah. Moving on. Question is this: should we pull a home equity loan to pay for senior care instead of selling the home? Katie, what are
Sounds
your
like
thoughts on
something up
that?
my alley.
Yeah.
Okay, so whenever you apply for an equity loan, people think that, oh, it's just a second, oh, it's just a
Right.
small amount. Well, unfortunately, it's still subject to the same procedures, the same underwriting guidelines that a first mortgage would have.
Yeah.
So there's the question of income qualification, credit qualification, right? And then the other thing there is who's allowed or who has the authority to apply for that equity loan. Because not because you're the child or even if you're untitled together with your parents that there's no participation on their part there. So it comes back to planning ahead of time.
Mhm.
Even though you've paid off, even though your parents might have paid off the house and has a lot of equity sitting in it, um, they still have requirements to meet to be able to pull that equity out of the home to fund for their care. Madeline, you're seeing a lot of this too, right?
Yes, I am actually. And to speak to that, in terms of using equity, the other alternative may be to look into the reverse mortgage option. And again, that's just another option that's out there, and qualifications are different in that aspect in terms of um, how the person would qualify. You may want to talk to one of the reverse mortgage specialists that I'm sure has been on Dale's shows to speak more towards those points. But again, that's a great option when they're equity heavy, not so great if maybe they purchased in the last couple of years and did a minimum down payment of 5%. So, just another thought.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with that. I mean, another alternative too, should somebody be able to qualify for it, credit and income wise, is the home equity line of credit, because that could help too instead of selling the home. And especially if it's dated, it frees up cash without adding any new, necessary liabilities, unless you're using, the home equity line or maxing it out. But every situation is different, and you really need to run the numbers with someone that understands like senior care timelines as well, right? Um,
Right.
okay, new question. Only only rich people can afford in-home care. I guess that's a statement. Is this true? Or is this fact or fiction?
I think it's fiction because there's, like what I said, the lesson for today is prepare. If families prepare ahead of time, the cost of care could be what we call pennies for the dollar,
Hmm.
right? So you don't necessarily have to be rich, and when you think about it, it's relative. What could be rich for one person might not be rich for the other, right? We can't quantify that. But
Yeah,
if you're prepared and you have set things up accordingly, then you could have the kind of care that you and your family have envisioned for yourself.
right.
Madeline, what are your thoughts on this?
I think that, again, rich is a relative term, right? A lot of people could have a lot of assets, but still have a lot of liabilities tied to them. I think the implications for the one big looming thing that we all try to avoid is taxes, the
Hmm.
implications for tax. So, again, going back to my favorite thing, which is to plan. There may be better ways to structure this. Some ways using life insurance products to better assist people, and with that comes again the planning. So I know it sounds really boring, but the truth of the matter is a lot of problems can be staved off if you just planned ahead. So I think that's it.
Yeah, you have more options available to you if you're not in that crisis mode of like, I got to do something now, right? You have like all these options available to you if you do that, if you are planning in advance. I mean, to answer this fact or fiction statement, I was gonna throw in you mentioned reverse mortgages in that last question. That's my answer for this one, because you can use a reverse mortgage for
Mhm.
this. It's about
Mhm.
being strategic. There are many middle income solutions if you really know, well, you work with the right team, and I mean, I just work with folks that understand the senior living space, right? Here's the next one. Okay. Um, I already have life insurance from work. Do I still need to buy another policy? Who's got this?
You know, it's great that you do. Let's start off with that.
Yeah.
It's great that you do, but let's be realistic. And I hate to, what do you call that? Put salt on an open wound.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Job security doesn't exist anymore these days. We might not be hearing it in the news anymore because it's become such part of day-to-day living now, but it's still out there. Layoffs, terminations, there's still, there's it's still out there. It's still a reality. And if the only life insurance you have is through work, what's going to happen if you're no longer with that company,
Yeah.
right? And most of the time, the coverage that the companies provide you as a benefit, it's a benefit. It's not entitlement, it's a benefit, right? Might not be sufficient to cover your family's needs if you're no
Right.
longer around. So it's great to have it. It's a start, but again, talk to a professional who can identify and who can help you determine what's the appropriate coverage for you. We've
Madeline?
talked about this a lot, and we hear about this a lot too.
Yes, we do. So not only is it great that you do have something to start with, it's a great
Hmm.
basic point. But if I were to ask you what's the value of $25,000 10 years ago versus today, would it be the same? Would that $25,000 go as far? And then the secondary thing is, like you said, you're getting it from an employer. And let's say you've been employed there for 10 years and you're let go or you decide to leave. What's the one true statement about that is now you are also older and your medical conditions may have changed. So qualification may become more difficult for you because, it's not something people think about. It's like, oh, I got a free insurance policy from, my job. That's great. It covers $50,000. I've been there for 15 years, and that $50,000 wouldn't even hold a family of four for maybe 6 months if you're lucky, depending on where you live. But what does it actually cover? And are you shortchanging yourself by not looking at other options? And maybe the last statement I will say about that is, do you review that policy with anybody? The employer is the one that gives it to you. So again, you're not looking at your life changes, which could be you had another child, you bought another home. $50,000 looks great when you're by yourself and living in an apartment and don't really have any other obligations. But maybe now that you're married and you have two pugs that need, their own insurance because they're hard to maintain. I mean, you think of these things, it's like to own things and to have things cost money, unfortunately. And $50,000 from your employer, and then you leave, and guess what? You're starting over again with another employer, which is great because the employer gives it to you, but is it really benefiting you in the bottom line? Maybe, maybe not. So I always think, the other thing, you can have multiple insurance policies. That's another thing. You can layer your protection to make sure you add other benefits, living benefits that you may need. And I advise people to look at those life insurance policies that you get from your employer at least once a year to see if anything, it's there. Make sure you review it encapsulated in the format of all your other life insurance policies, as well as reviewing your living trust. Another important thing. I hate the word probate. It's not my favorite word. So,
Yep.
Gail?
Just last thing, I'm agreeing with both of you. I mean, 100%. I think work policy is more like training wheels. I mean, for real security, you really need your own policy. I'll just keep it at that.
Yeah.
Here's the last question I want us to,
Already? Wow.
debunk. Debunk. Is it true that Medicare pays for assisted living? My neighbor said it does.
No, no. Very simple answer. No,
No.
it doesn't. That's another
No.
misconception here. It does not. In fact, Medicare covers your stay in a medical facility 100% for the first 20 days. From day 21 to day 100, you're subject to a copay. Okay. So once you're out of that medical facility, it doesn't cover you anymore. So you have to take care of yourself. Your family will have to take care of yourself. Now, there's also, there's supplements, right? And people think, oh, the supplements will cover it, or the Medigap will cover it. It doesn't. Um, I think we were talking about this earlier. Health insurance or Medicare takes the place of a health insurance, um, and so it takes care of your health.
Right.
long-term care is for care.
Right.
Two different things, two different approach. Somebody once told me that's why they call it long-term care, not long-term cure. So to answer that question or to
True.
debunk that myth is no, Medicare doesn't cover you for long-term care.
Yeah. I'll go next. I mean, I know Medicare it's health insurance, right? It's a federal program that helps cover things like hospital stays, doctor visits, rehab after a fall, right? And but what it doesn't cover is the long term, the custodial care that the ADLs, the activities of daily
Mhm.
living, like bathing, meal prep, medication reminders. Again, and crucially, Medicare does not pay for assisted living communities, right?
Mhm.
What they're probably really confusing it with is Medi-Cal. And for those of you that don't know, Medi-Cal is California's version of Medicaid, which is designed for low-income individuals, right? Now, Medi-Cal can help for assisted living, but it's not in the way that most people think, because it's not automatic. And there are very specific programs you have to qualify for, like one of the most popular ones is ALW, stands for Assisted Living Waiver. It's available in certain California counties, including parts of the Bay Area. And it's designed, again, for helping low income seniors transition out of nursing homes or avoid being placed in one by helping to cover the cost of assisted living, right? A newer Medi-Cal type of program that, again, it accesses Medi-Cal funds is called CalAIM. I think it stands for California Advancing and Innovating Medi-Cal, I believe. And again, it's a newer program that brings more flexibility to Medi-Cal, allowing for certain community supports that can indirectly help people stay in less institutional settings, like including assisted living. Again, these are programs for lower income folks that meet both the income and the medical eligibility requirements. It's not a matter of just filling out a form once and it takes a while. I mean, as you can imagine, there are wait lists, and just because you qualify doesn't mean you get it right away. So you have to be patient. So bottom line, Medicare is health insurance, does not cover assisted living. Medi-Cal, it's need based, and it may cover it through special programs like the ALW and CalAIM, but it's only qualified for low income individuals. For everyone else, like middle income families, are likely to be paying out of pocket using things like home equity, savings, long-term care insurance, etc. Right? Madeleine, do you have anything to add?
I love it when people say, "Oh, my cousin's neighbor's dog walker's best friend told me this," or "I read it. I read it on the internet somewhere." And it's like, you have the option to speak to live people and get a trusted advisor. I highly advise that people do that because I know that there's plenty of things to read about online, and I'm super grateful that Dale's doing this type of forum where we can answer some of the questions that people ask, because this is real life with real questions, and we're all trying to navigate and find solutions the best we can. Each case is a case by case situation where something that worked for someone's cousin's neighbor's dog walker's best friend may not work for you. But to find the solutions, you need to have the right kind of team to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any final words?
I think there's been a focus on the needs to finance care. Now, I'd like to switch the conversation or the focus on those who are able to self fund their care, because there's also that group of people out there who
Yeah.
have done the responsible thing. They've planned for it, they've worked for it, they've got their assets, they've got their portfolio in there. And one of the comments that I get is, I've got my estate in order. I've got my retirement plan. There's plenty there. I can self fund my long term care, and
Mhm.
I think it's great. Again, it's kudos to those people who have taken the responsible role of preparing for their future, right? However, there's also an impact when you self fund your care. You could be subject to tax implications, you could be subject to market timing. There's also an impact on the the retirement income that you're expecting to generate from that portfolio. And then there's also a question of how liquid are your assets that you're counting on, because we all know what it takes to sell a house, right? We've been part of that conversations. Dale and Madeline, you both have been in the forefront of selling a home for a family, and sometimes it doesn't happen immediately.
Yep.
But when the need arises, it needs to be addressed fast.
Right.
So you could realize a lot less than what you thought the value of your portfolio is. So take that into consideration, because no matter how great the planning is, no matter how diverse your portfolio is, um, it's still subject to those concerns. Again, the market timing, the liquidity, the tax implications, um, and the loss of future retirement income.
Excellent. Thanks for that advice. So I know we lost Madeleine, but um, I know she's here with us in spirit. Anyhow, that's a wrap for our very first live cast episode live with Madeleine, Katie, and Dale. Thank you so much for joining us today. Whether you were here live or catching the replay, we're truly grateful to be part of your senior care journey. If you like this format, let us know. Go to simplifyseniortransitions.com and click on contact and leave a message there. We'll be doing this monthly to answer the real questions families are facing. So huge thanks to my amazing co-hosts, Madeleine and Katie. And I think Madeleine's coming back on, actually. And of course,
Oh, great.
to everyone who submitted questions through our Google form or asked them live during the broadcast, we got some fantastic ones. And even though we couldn't get to all of them today, don't worry. We plan to kick off our next episode with a few of the missed ones. And I'll also be answering many of them on my daily question of the day series powered by the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast. And you could catch those short videos like on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. It's pretty much on everything. So make sure to follow me on your favorite social media platform to keep the conversation going. And if you haven't already, check out the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast, where we dive even deeper with expert interviews on senior care, housing, family dynamics, and more. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. If you or your loved one is navigating a senior transition, whether it's downsizing, finding the right community, understanding long-term care insurance, or figuring how to fund care, schedule a free consultation with me at www.simplifyseniortransitions.com. We're here to help you make confident, informed decisions. Thanks again for being with us on Live with Madeleine, Katie, and Dale. We'll see you next time. And remember, you're not alone in this. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.